नमो भगवते श्री अरविंदाय। ओम आनंदमयी, ओम चैतन्यमयी, ओम सत्यमयी, ओम परमे। O my beloved Lord, let us be thine integrally. Let Lord's divine peace be with us. June 4th, 1914. O thou who triumphest over all obstacles, that thou shalt be in us the victory over all that would be an obstacle to the accomplishment of thy divine law. Thou wilt dispel the darkness of ignorance and the black smoke of egoistic ill will. Thou wilt dissolve all wrong suggestions and strengthen in us a pure and clear vision and perspicacity which does not let itself be deceived by disruptive thoughts and conflicting will for disorder. O my sweet Master, thy infinite love is the reality of our being. Who can struggle against its all-powerful action? It penetrates everything, it passes through every obstacle, whether it be the inertia of a heavy ignorance or the resistance of an uncomprehending ill will. O my sweet Master, through and by this love thou shinest resplendent in all things. And this splendor of things, this splendor of thine, ever increasing in its force, shall radiate its action over all the earth and become perceptible to every consciousness. Who can resist thy divine power? Thou art the sole and supreme reality. My being is ingathered in a mute adoration, and everything disappears that is not thou. Reading 1 on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In 1508, Nimai went on a pilgrimage to Gaya to perform the Shraddha ceremony of his father. He was accompanied, as always, by a large number of his pupils. After the ceremony, he went to a nearby temple to see the sacred footprint of Lord Vishnu. As his gaze was fixed on the footprint and the priests around were singing the name of the Lord, Nimai was overcome with emotion. Tears flowed down his face in a continuous stream. His whole body trembled. An intense and blissful devotion made him fall on his knees in adoration. Among the many other pilgrims was Ishvara Puri, a renowned devotee of Krishna who had visited Navdeep some years before and had met the young Pandit Nimai, but had no apparent influence on Nimai at that time. When he saw Puri, Ishwara Puri at Gaya, Nimai asked him to be his guru and to initiate him. Puri accepted and, in a secluded spot, whispered the sacred Krishna mantra in his ear. On his way back to Navdeep, Nimai was blessed with the vision of Krishna. When he arrived in his hometown, people could not believe their eyes. Nimai was a completely changed man. His pride of learning and his aggressive spirit were gone. His fondness for dress and care for personal appearance had disappeared. He was the meekest and simplest of men. He hardly paid attention to anything of this world and was always lost in the thought of Krishna. Tears flowed from his eyes at the very name of Krishna, and anything associated with the Lord sent him into trance. It was impossible for him to teach his pupils. The only meaning he found in the sutras of grammar he was accustomed to teach, or in any word or letter, was Krishna. So he always discoursed on Krishna, and in the midst of the discourses laughed and wept and raved and lost himself in trance. Nimai, who had so far been given only to scholastic pursuits, was now completely mad with love for Krishna. His pupils did not know what to do. They felt it was impossible for them to leave their teacher and take their lessons from someone else. They went and reported everything to the head of the school, who gave some good counsel to Nimai. Nimai promised earnestly to follow the advice, but he could not. In utter helplessness, he had to tell his pupils one day, "I always see a dark complexioned boy of exquisite beauty standing before me and playing on his flute. I cannot but speak of him and him alone. I must therefore stop teaching from today onwards. You are free to go and take your lessons anywhere you like." And so saying, he closed the book and burst into tears. The pupils also closed their books, saying, "No more education for us, master. Only bless us that we may remember life after life what we have learnt at thy feet." The master was visibly moved. He took them one by one upon his lap and kissed them and wept. Then he performed some kirtana with them. He stood in the middle singing and keeping time with his hands, while the pupils went round and round repeating the song. As the song and the dance went on, their hearts were filled with the presence of the divine, and tears of joy flowed from their eyes. Many people from the neighborhood were attracted to the scene, but everyone who came as a spectator was caught into the current of devotion and began to sing and dance. This marked the end of the academic career of Nimai and the beginning of Sankirtana, which was now the professed mission of his life. The Life Divine by Sri Aurobindo. The Gnostic Being. Page 10 1 9. The supramental transformation, the supramental evolution must carry with it a lifting of mind, life, and body out of themselves into a greater way of being, in which yet their own ways and powers would be not suppressed or abolished, but perfected and fulfilled by the self exceeding. For in the ignorance, all paths or the paths of the spirit seeking for itself blindly or with the growing light, the Gnostic being and life would be the spirit's self discovery and its seeing and reaching of the aims of all these paths, but in the greater way of its own revealed consciousness, truth of being. Mind seeks for light, for knowledge, of the one truth basing all, an essential truth of self and things, but also of all truth of diversity of that oneness, all its detail, circumstance, manifold way of action, form, law of movement and happening, various manifestation and creation. For thinking mind, the joy of existence is discovery and the penetration of the mystery of creation that comes with knowledge. This the Gnostic change will fulfill in an ample measure, but it will give it a new character. It will act not by the discovery of the unknown, but by the bringing out of the known. all will be the finding of the self by the self in the self. Reading 2, The Mother on Herself. In Japan, for each season, there are known sites. For instance, in autumn, leaves become red. They have large numbers of maple trees. The leaves of the maple turn into all shades of the most vivid red in autumn. It is absolutely marvelous. So, they arrange a place near a temple, for instance, on top of a hill, and the entire hill is covered with maples. There is a stairway which climbs straight up, almost like a ladder, from the base to the top. And it is so steep that what is at the top. One gets the feeling of a ladder rising to the skies. A stone stairway very well made, rising steeply and seeming to lose itself in the sky. Clouds pass and both the sides of the hills are covered with maples. And these maples have the most magnificent colors you could ever imagine. Well, an artist who goes there will experience an emotion of absolutely exceptional, marvelous beauty. Almost all the most beautiful, the striking sights I had seen in vision in France. And yet I had not seen any pictures or photographs of Japan. I knew nothing of Japan, and I had seen these landscapes without human beings. Nothing but the landscape, quiet, pure like that. And it had seemed to me they were visions of a world other than the physical. They seemed to me too beautiful for the physical world, too perfectly beautiful. Particularly, I used to see very often those stairs rising straight up into the sky. In my vision, there was the impression of climbing straight up, straight up, and as though one could go on climbing, climbing, climbing. It had struck me, and the first time I saw this in nature down there, I understood that I had already seen it in France before having known anything about Japan. A deep concentration seized on me, and I perceived that I was identifying myself with a single cherry blossom, then through it with all cherry blossoms. And as I descended deeper in the consciousness, following a stream of bluish force, I became suddenly the cherry tree itself, stretching towards the sky like so many arms, its innumerable branches laden with the sacrifice of flowers. Then I heard distinctly this sentence: Thus hast thou made thyself one with the soul of cherry trees, and so thou canst take note that it is the divine who makes the offering of this flower prayer to heaven. When I had written it, all was effaced. But now the blood of the cherry tree flows in my veins, and with it flows an incomparable peace and force. What difference is there between human body and the body of a tree? In truth, there is none. The consciousness which animates them is identically the same. Then the cherry tree whispered in my ear, "It is in the cherry blossom that lies the remedy for the disorders of the spring." Prayers and Meditation, 7th April 1917. Prayer to the Spirit of Aurobindo, the place for the dawn of higher consciousness. Dear Mother, let us make use of each blessing bestowed upon us with the utmost sincerity and adoration, with aspiration to widen and grow in our consciousness, enlarging us with your enveloping presence. Let a new dawn fall on each of us and make our life and the fellow human being as filled with peace, happiness, and beauty. Thanks for this beautiful collective aspiration. Let your love pour into us who participate in this good cause. Thank you, Mother. Thank you, Lord. Thanks each one of you for your participation. Be in peace. Be in an aspiration to grow wider and with joyful mind and heart. Greetings from Aurobindo.